My older sister said my blood could cure the emperor's illness and told me to give him a bowl of blood every day. I instructed my stand-in maid, Li Qing. Let's give him duck blood today. We sent pig blood yesterday. Can't have His Majesty getting bored of the taste. Li Qing rolled her eyes reluctantly. Such a waste of good duck blood. It'd be perfect for a hot pot. I nodded in agreement. What a shame. Yesterday's pig blood would have been great for making blood sausages with garlic sauce. As soon as I finished speaking, the eunuch who often came by for free meals gagged so hard while perched on the wall that he almost threw up bile. You too, ugh. I tried helping him up twice but couldn't manage it. While pulling at him, I accidentally caught a glimpse of bright yellow fabric under his robe. I was baffled. It's just roast suckling pig. What's the big deal? Did you really have to wear the imperial yellow robe for something like this? When the new emperor took the throne, he brought women from various noble families into the palace as decorative companions to balance political power. My older sister, Liu, who was considered the most beautiful of them all, was furious that someone like me had also been brought into the palace. She sneered that a cheap clay pot like me had no right to be placed alongside fine porcelain like her. So she secretly bribed someone and had me sent to the rundown side courtyard, the Huaha courtyard. I stared at the dilapidated place in despair and asked Li Qing, "Where are our things? It's time we change our situation." Li Qing excitedly pulled out several brown paper packets from our bundles. These are coriander seeds, mustard greens, cabbage, water celery, and amaranth seeds. Miss, this courtyard is heaven sent for farming. Look at this little pond, and that rich black soil. I tapped my forehead. Did we bring any silver at all? Didn't you say we should bring things that could save our lives? Li Qing looked at me with innocent confusion. Aren't these the treasures that saved our lives in the back garden before? I gently patted her shiny forehead. Li Qing, back at the Ministry of Rights estate we at least had hoes. Are we supposed to dig with our bare hands here? Seeing her confused expression, I knocked over the clay jar on the table. Li Qing immediately caught on, grabbed 2 shards of tile, tied them to sticks, and said, "Miss, you're so clever. Other people enter the palace to seek favor and glory. I'm just here to farm in a new location." Liu didn't want me to have even the slightest chance to rise, so she bribed the Imperial Astrology Office to declare me unlucky, getting me confined to Huaha Courtyard. Even the Imperial Kitchen looked down on me and sent food worse than what they gave to the servants. Fortunately, the first batch of garlic chives we planted started to sprout. We also traded a silver hairpin for rice and flour. Porridge and flatbread were no problem. But to be self-sufficient, Li Qing and I worked hard day and night. One dark and windy night, just as Li Qing and I were sweating away at our work, something seemed to fall off the wall. I put down the tile shard in my hand, eyes lighting up. Did heaven send us food? Li Qing ran over to the fallen figure. "Miss, it's a young eunuch, but he's passed out." I sighed in disappointment. What a pity. Li Qing dragged the eunuch over to me. "Miss, why isn't he waking up?" Without looking up, I said, "Probably starving. Give him some of the leftover food from dinner." Got it. Li Qing quickly poured the leftover flour paste into the eunuch's mouth. But not long after, the eunuch slowly opened his eyes, grabbed my hand, and promptly threw up all over me. I pushed him away in disgust.
Ugh.
How are you repaying kindness with vomit? But as I pushed, I felt something warm and wet. Looking at the blood on my fingertips, I said, "You're hurt?" The eunuch weakly nodded. "What did you feed me? Was it poisoned?" You could say it was spoiled, but poison? Absolutely not. Looking at the faint green hue beneath the vomit on his clothes, I said, "You were the one poisoned. Lucky for you. That bowl of spoiled gruel made you throw it up. You're welcome." The eunuch looked down, lost in thought. No wonder I didn't dodge that arrow. Thank you for saving my life. I'm just a dang, not even a Goerin yet. The eunuch nodded dazedly. All right. I'm saying I'm not even a noble lady yet, just a low-ranking attendant. The eunuch. Oh. I took a deep breath and asked a string of questions. What's your name? How did you get hurt? Why did you end up here? Did anyone see you? I'm Wei Daquan. I got rewarded, but my roommates got jealous and attacked me. I climbed a random wall, no one saw me. I looked at Daquan enviously and sighed. So, how are you planning to repay me for saving your life? Daquan looked at me, even more confused. What do you want? Li Qing shot her hand up. Meat. Preferably pork, with 3 layers of fat and lean. How rude. I quickly covered her mouth. What if we finish the pork? I looked at Wei Daquan with stars in my eyes. Could you bring us some chickens? A rooster, a hen, and a chick. 1 of each. That way we'll have both chicken and eggs. 2. Daquan really lived up to his reputation as a wall-scaling expert. Even carrying a whole cage of chickens didn't slow him down. Li Qing's eyes lit up as she started mixing mud. Miss, let's make beggar's chicken. We can wrap it with lotus leaves from the pond. I pulled a dagger from my boot and swiftly killed and plucked the chickens. As I turned with the cleaned chicken in hand, I spotted Wei Daquan still standing there. Aren't you supposed to be back at your post? Wei Daquan looked at the chicken in my hand and simply said, no rush. He said no rush, but he didn't say he was staying for dinner. Watching him eye the chicken like he might chew the bones too, I couldn't help but ask, don't they feed you out there? Wei Daquan calmly wiped his mouth. What else do you want? Can you bring me some rabbits next time? His eyes widened. This is the harem. Are you trying to get yourself killed? Planning to cuckold the emperor with rabbits? I looked at him, puzzled. You're not allowed to raise rabbits in the palace? Because they breed? Li Qing chimed in. I agree. Mississippi don't keep rabbits. They'll multiply like crazy. You won't even be able to finish eating them. I thought you meant that kind of rabbit statue too. Daquan smirked and dragged out his words. So you're planning to raise and eat them? What kind of rabbit is Tuyi? Li Qing was intrigued. Trust the palace to have some fancy breed. Do they breed well? Are they tasty? The next night, Daquan really showed up with a cage of rabbits. He didn't leave after dropping them off either, so I took the hint, gathered firewood, and started roasting rabbit over the fire. After several sticks of incense burned, Daquan wiped his fingers clean. I ate your rabbit. What do you want in return? I stirred the fire and glanced over at him. You were castrated later in life, right? Which palace do you serve in? Daquan choked on his tea and nearly put out the fire. How did you know? You don't really call yourself a servant and you never bow to me. I pointed at his neck. Plus, you still have an Adam's apple. Daquan cleared his throat twice, his voice hoarse. There was a family incident, so I entered the palace late. I work in the imperial kitchen now. I sighed regretfully. Such a waste of that face. Just as I finished speaking, Li Qing's voice floated in from behind, ghostly quiet. Miss, so you're secretly eating behind my back, huh? The price of her anger was tilling the whole courtyard in a huff. She weeded, watered the plants, and even fed the chickens. I stifled a smile and handed her a roasted rabbit leg. Li Qing, I promise, if I have 1 bite, you get 1 too. You think I'm mad about rabbit meat? She said, hands on her hips as she bit into the leg. I'm mad you ditched me for that pretty boy, Daquan. Before her anger could cool, Daquan hopped over the wall again, this time with half a basket of lychees. I stared at the plump fruit and began to doubt. Even eunuchs outside eat this well? Li Qing, seeing how I was practically drooling over the lychees, ground her teeth. Miss, I'll scale the wall tonight and find a side job to earn you lychees. I pulled her back and smoothed her ruffled feathers. It's too dangerous outside. I couldn't bear to let you go. But he's just an outsider. Let him take the risks. Let him suffer while we enjoy the peace and quiet of our courtyard. What could be better? Daquan's face darkened, his voice tinged with frost. So, no dinner tonight? A few incense sticks later, Daquan and Li Qing sat like twin guardians on either side of me, sipping chicken soup. Li Qing held up her bowl proudly. Miss gave me the drumstick. Do you have one? Daquan tossed his chewed drumstick bone on the table and calmly slurped his noodles. Meanwhile, stuck in the middle, tears streamed down my face. In this game of playing favorites, I was the only loser. Why couldn't the chicken have 3 legs? 3. Li Qing and Daquan had somehow reached a strange balance. Daquan paid for the chicken with a rabbit, the rabbit with a duck, the duck with a pig. Li Qing, determined to prove her worth, tilled the soil, watered the plants, planted vegetables, and even cleaned up after the animals. Just as my Huahen courtyard was thriving, my dear elder sister stirred up more drama. She told the Empress Dowager that I was born exceptionally healthy and suggested that if they took a bowl of my blood every day for the Emperor, maybe the Empress Dowager could soon have a grandson to cuddle. When the Empress Dowager's decree landed in my hands, Li Qing stormed around the courtyard in circles. Mrs. Blood can't fix his situation. What does she want it for? If His Majesty's struggling, let him drink some aphrodisiac wine. I held back the furious Li Qing, scooped a bowl of duck's blood in the kitchen, and said, "Aren't I just the picture of health? Look how fresh and red this is." Li Qing caught on and wrapped a white bandage around my wrist, even dusted a bit of powder on my face for good measure. The Empress Dowager must have had divine powers. She kept sending people for blood every few days, but never questioned why I was still alive. And the Emperor, he sure ate well. Duck's blood today, pig's blood tomorrow, lamb the next. If I happened to be on a vegetarian day, I crushed some beets and mixed them with water. Daquan stayed busy too. As soon as the nightly curfew ended, he climbed over the wall for a secret meal. But fine if he came for food, whatever. Why was he bringing people with him? Li Qing poked my side as she watched Daquan hoist someone over the wall. "Miss, that person looks off." All black and blue. I leaned in, felt for a pulse, then quickly backed away. Why does everything end up in my yard? I'm not picky, but I draw the line at eating people. Daquan dumped the person on the ground and ran straight for the teapot. "I remember you can identify poisons. Can you tell what he was poisoned with?" "I only did that last time, because you threw up on me." I stared speechlessly at the man on the ground. "This one's still whole. How am I supposed to tell?" Daquan pulled a knife from the kitchen, made a clean cut, opened up the man's stomach, and threw the gut into a basin. "Now can you tell?" I pulled out my dagger and sliced the stomach open. The blood is dark purple. Stomach linings corroded. Smells faintly like bitter almonds. "You're not scared?" I gave a cold snort and forced a calm look. I've butchered at least 10 pigs in my life. This is no different. Li Qing shook her head, full of regret. "Now he's really in pieces, east side, west side." Her words finally broke me. I doubled over and dry heaved. Daquan handed me a silk handkerchief. "Thanks. Someone's trying to kill me. From now on, I'll need to be careful with what I eat." "You're not going to ask who it was?" I wiped my mouth and took his arm to stand up. "No. The less I know, the longer I live. Whatever grudges you have, go settle them yourself. Li Qing, and I can only feed you." Daquan's eyes misted with gratitude. "What's for dinner tonight?" "Want fish and mushroom congee." "Me? Ugh." Daquan glanced down at the mess in front of him. "Hard not to think you did that on purpose." 4. After Daquan carried the body away, Hua Courtyard went vegetarian for half a month straight. Li Qing couldn't take it anymore after she'd caught and fried all the cicadas in the courtyard. "Miss, are you still not over it?" she asked, then turned to Daquan, who was gnawing on a flatbread. "Miss, look at him. Daquan's practically skin and bones from hunger." Without even lifting his head, Daquan flipped through a book with one hand and waved the flatbread with the other. "I don't mind. The flatbread my lady makes tastes better than anything from the imperial kitchen." Unconvinced, Li Qing leaned toward me. "Miss, that little pig this morning was seriously disrespectful. It coughed at me." I threw down my flatbread and drew the dagger from my boot. "If it's coughing, then kill it. Let's have roast suckling pig." Daquan leapt up even faster than me. "I'll go light the fire." Li Qing shoved him aside. "The coal's been weird lately. It'll take till after midnight to get the fire going." Daquan suddenly understood. So, it was the coal's fault. "Lame joke," I said. Li Qing shivered and glanced at me. "Miss, that made you laugh?" Soon enough, The whole courtyard was filled with the aroma of roast meat. While brushing wild honey and sprinkling seasoning over the pig, Li Qing said cheerfully, "Miss, I feel like the little pig respects me a lot more now." Daquan had perfectly picked up my knife skills. With a clean set of movements, he carved the roast pig and plated it beautifully. He just pushed a plate of ribs in front of me when a haughty female voice called from over the wall. "Hey, our young mistress wants to know what smells so good. She's willing to pay for some." Li Qing put her hands on her hips. "My lady doesn't need your young mistress's money." Seeing Daquan hiding in a corner near the wall, I signaled to Li Qing to send some over quickly and get rid of them before trouble started. But before she could say a word, a noble woman in embroidered robes climbed up onto the wall. "Apologies. My maid was a bit rude just now. You're Li Yu's younger sister, Li Qi, right? I'm Lin Yu. I was out for a walk and smelled something familiar. It made me crave it too much. Could I perhaps buy some with silver?" Li Qing awkwardly cleared her throat. "Noble consort Lin, Our Lady says this plate is a gift for you." Lin Yu thanked me, then climbed down from the wall with her maid. I glanced at Daquan, who was still glued to the corner, and asked in confusion, "She knows you?" Daquan nodded. "I've delivered pastries to her palace a few times. I didn't want her recognizing me and causing trouble for you." I didn't really buy it because after noble consort Lin showed up, Daquan stopped coming to Huaha Courtyard during the day. Instead, her maid, White Peach, started dropping by every now and then, mooching meals off the wall. After a few visits, she and Li Qing even became quite chummy. As soon as the nightly curfew lifted, Daquan climbed back into the courtyard carrying a food box full of pastries. I was happily munching on a chicken leg and had to grab the box one-handed. But just as I reached for it, he didn't let go, and my hand ended up resting right over his strong, knuckled fingers. The atmosphere turned awkward. Then Li Qing's voice rang out from behind us. "Daquan's here. Want a sweet potato?" I yanked my hand back. Daquan said he'll eat it. Daquan's fingertips trembled slightly as he placed the pastries on the table. "Why you like osmanthus cake and mung bean pastries?" "No." Ha 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 ha. Li Qing grinned and leaned over. "This baked sweet potato is hot." She tossed the steaming potato into Daquan's arms, then sniffed around him. "Daquan, are you wearing incense?" Completely oblivious to his darkened face, Li Qing went on. "Makes sense. Eunuchs all love incense." I quickly covered her mouth. She's young and can't hold her tongue. But hey, it smells nice. Classy. Daquan pulled out a handful of lychees from his robes. "It's the fruit scent lychees." "Why are you stuffing lychees in your robe?" Daquan handed me the peeled sweet potato. "The palace isn't too peaceful right now. You two might be grounded but still need to stay alert. I'll bring a dog tomorrow to help guard the place." Li Qing nodded like a pecking chick. White Peach was gossiping with me for 2 whole hours this afternoon, says the harem's in chaos. I came back to my senses and took a bite of sweet potato. What happened? His Majesty arranged a marriage between Consort Jing and the Minister of Revenue. I was more confused than ever. Li Qing, I understand every word you just said, but together they make no sense. You mean the Emperor's concubine is getting married? Li Qing leaned in, looking all mysterious. His Majesty brought over 100 court ladies into the palace, but never favored any of them. He just raised them like flowers to block the court from using marriage alliances. Now he's marrying them off himself to balance out the noble families. Some concubines are even bribing him, saying they already have someone they love and begging for a good match. She crept closer and whispered, "Want me to send the Emperor some chicken or duck and ask for a good match for you?" I tapped her on the forehead. First of all, I doubt His Majesty lacks poultry. Second, those women begging him for marriage probably won't get to marry the men they actually want. He's too suspicious to let the court form factions. And lastly, scrambling for this is just going from one pit into another. Li Qing lifted her chin, unconvinced. But he made Consort Jing a commandery princess and had the Empress Dowager arrange her wedding. Such a grand affair. I nodded thoughtfully. This young emperor's got some skill. He balances kindness with authority. Li Qing, like a pecking chick again. Miss, do you think the Emperor being so smart has anything to do with us giving him blood from time to time? I abruptly tossed my sweet potato into Daquan's arms and clamped a hand over Li Qing's mouth. Li Qing mumbled, I just think, that it has to do with the blood. Daquan calmly took a bite of the sweet potato I'd thrown at him and mumbled, What blood is Li Qing talking about? I forced a smile. She meant the Emperor being clever has something to do with the shoes we gave him. You gave the Emperor shoes? I nodded vigorously. Back on his birthday. Even though I was grounded, I still had to send a gift. Daquan sat down and thought. Didn't see any shoes. I'll go check at the Ministry of Internal Affairs. I waved my hand. That's too much trouble. Next time there's a birthday banquet and I send more shoes, I'll show you then way easier. 5. With my 6-month house arrest about to end, somehow the Empress Dowager issued another decree to confine me for another 6 months. I was so furious I slaughtered a whole pig, 3 ducks, 5 chickens, and 7 fish. Daquan's dog, Dejou, came over and saw my bloodied hands, quietly curling up obediently at my feet without making a sound. Miss, tired from all the killing? Li Qing softly asked me, Do you want to rest for a bit? I gave a cold smile. Rest? Rest? After being confined for 6 months, and then another 6 months, there will be plenty of time to rest. No sooner had I spoken when Lin Yu and Bite Ao climbed over the wall into the yard. I could hear your pigs squealing and chickens clucking from outside. What's going on? Lin Yu looked around at the pile of corpses and sank down weakly to the ground. Am I going to die here today too? Several incense sticks later, Lin Yu was holding a pig's trotter in her left hand and a chicken leg in her right, her eyes on the duck neck, mumbling, Quiet mouth, chew faster. I sighed deeply. Let's talk about the merits and strengths of today's roast meat. Baitao swallowed her bite and said, Isn't merit and strength the same thing? Li Qing quickly snatched the last chicken leg and said, Miss, this roast suckling pig is fragrant and crispy, oily but not greasy. This lotus leaf chicken is fresh and juicy, with all 5 flavors. I said softly, So, does that mean my roast duck isn't tasty? Li Qing swallowed nervously. Miss, how about after I finish eating, you punch me twice to vent your anger? Don't be angry too. Lin Yu took a sip of bayberry wine. This time it wasn't your legitimate elder sister causing trouble, it was the Empress Dowager's decree. What happened to my elder sister? I heard she was reprimanded and punished with kneeling for failing to seduce His Majesty. Even worse than you. Lin Yu shook her head helplessly. Which of you palace entrants isn't trying to cozy up to His Majesty for family benefit? You mean us? Yes, you. Lin Yu nodded calmly. I'm different from you. I truly like His Majesty, so I advised the Empress Dowager to extend your confinement. What if His Majesty sees you and likes you? I spent a lot of money finding out that His Majesty likes pretty faces. I must be cautious in advance. Me. Noble Consort Lin is impressive. Wealthy and impressive. I looked at the stack of food expenses Lin Yu left on the table. Impressive. Lin Yu waved it off casually. I see you don't have ambitions for favor. Do you want to leave the palace and marry? What kind do you like? I'll keep an eye out for you. A familiar face flashed in my mind, and I blurted out, Good-looking ones. Lin Yu nodded approvingly. I like good-looking ones too. Life in the deep palace is hard, even harder when every day you're staring at a pig's face. But no one else has been to Hua Garden? Lin Yu changed her tone. Last time I caught a glimpse of a familiar figure. You say even the chickens, ducks, and dogs in this yard look familiar? I rolled my eyes silently. Please take the pig, duck, chicken, and fish out of Hua Garden. Can I take 2 more roasted sweet potatoes? Lin Yu smiled brightly and waited for me to nod, then hurriedly stuffed the dark roasted sweet potatoes into her sleeve. Good, Lizzie, you're the best. I watched Lin Yu and Baitao struggle to climb over the wall and down, then drain my cup of wine. Li Qing cautiously peeked at me. Miss, do you have something on your mind? I toyed with my wine cup and nodded. Li Qing, maybe I should ask the Empress Dowager to let me marry? Li Qing poured me another cup and clinked glasses with me. Then, miss, who do you want to marry? Daquan. Li Qing choked on her drink. Who?
Daquan? Daquan?
I mean, Daquan is coming. I raised my cup to the full moon. Go to the kitchen and bring him the lotus leaf chicken I saved. Li Qing stood up fiercely and even bared her teeth at Daquan. Humph. Daquan had a big question mark on his face. Just provoking you. I smiled and laughed. Li Qing's been practicing Iron Head skills lately, planning to headbutt you to death when you try to snatch the lychee wine. Let her practice. Once she masters it, I'll find a magnet and throw it into the yard. I snorted. What a lame joke. Daquan didn't even look up and pulled a dagger from his Hua means bosom or wily, but I'll keep it simple here, and handed it to me. Here. I weighed the light dagger in my hand. You want to trade daggers? Mine's studded with gems, but trading for your black iron dagger isn't a bad deal. Cough, 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 cough. Daquan was speechless but gave me a thumbs up. You're unstoppable. I tossed my dagger to Daquan, then poured him a cup of lychee wine. Here, it's brewed from the lychees you brought. Daquan took a sip and even complimented my clothes, saying they suited my complexion. The Ministry of Internal Affairs sent over a lot of fabric, for some reason. Li Qing worked overnight to make me 2 sets of clothes. I stuffed the dagger into my boot and stood up, legs apart, squatting and standing up. The underskirt Li Qing altered into pants, so it's easier for me to hoe the ground. I gestured at the stunned Daquan. Eat something. I'm going to brush the pigs now. Killed a pig right in front of them today. Scared several of them to pee. Daquan stood up and grabbed my arm. I'll go. Don't get your skirt dirty. I watched his hurried back and secretly ground my molars. I brush the pigs in the pen every 3 days. They don't stink at all. As for why he looked so breathless and red-faced so early, the days of confinement continued uneventfully, but too much peace always stirs up some trouble. When Li Qing was perched on the wall picking red fruit from the lantern tree, she waved at me urgently. Hurry, hurry. Miss, you better hide. The young mistress seems to be coming to our courtyard. I rolled my eyes. Let her come. It's just more trouble. I've been locked up for so long anyway. Plenty of time to vent my anger. I slashed the air with an imaginary sword and sat down heavily on a bench. It's time she learned how unruly I can be. She needs to know I'm not a pushover. Sword skills. Li Qing looked down at me, proud as ever. Mrs. Miss still finds time to practice swordsmanship even while working every day. Do I really need to learn to be unruly? Just watch me handle this. Liu was bold. She sent someone to kick open the locked gate of the Huahe garden. But when she opened her mouth, all that came out was a loud wail. No one in this harem is a good person. She threw herself at me, sobbing. You don't know, boo-hoo. That damn dog emperor, boo-hoo, he punished me by making me kneel in public, boo-hoo. I shrugged awkwardly. So, what are you trying to say? Today is my birthday. Liu sobbed and hiccuped. I want to eat noodles. The dusk was heavy with smoke and haze. Liu slurped a bite of noodles. Boo-hoo. Father said I should plead with His Majesty on behalf of my eldest brother for his mistake. Our father's got little hair left but plenty of ideas. I snorted. He's lazy and counts on women. After squeezing your mother dry, now he's scheming with my mother's fate, using this to tie his daughters down and clear a path for his son. Li looked confused. But father said if the Li family does well, then we all do well. You've got it backwards. If we do well, then the Li family does well. I saw the confusion deepen in Liu's eyes and sighed. Do you really think your eldest brother, who can barely read, is fit to be an official? She shook her head. I gritted my teeth and pressed on. He can't even take care of himself. How can he do well? To father, only the eldest brother counts as Li family. The rest of us are just stepping stones. You've been in the palace long. Has father ever asked if you're okay? If father cared for you, would he have sent me in here too? I fried an egg and placed it in Liu's bowl. You know something's off too. You came to me just to find someone to validate your feelings. Liu paused a moment, her eyes reddening. Right? Why doesn't my eldest brother work hard and improve himself, and instead makes me go through all this trouble on his behalf? I think father is at the age when he should be working hard too. I'm going to plead with His Majesty to marry me off to father's sworn enemy and cut ties with him. I gave a thumbs up. Big sis, that's loyalty. Liu looked at Li Qing, who had just repaired the gate, then climbed up the wall in a hurry. Before jumping down, Liu pulled out a stack of silver notes from her bosom. I've wronged you before.
Keep these.
I can still swindle a bit from father. Liu glanced me over. But you are in good health. Bleeding every once in a while keeps your energy stronger than mine. His Majesty eats steamed red date cakes soaked in blood every couple of days and still doesn't look as healthy as you. I waved my hand modestly. That's not my blood. It's the blood of ducks, pigs, and chickens from my courtyard, sent His Majesty in rotation. Li Qing nodded in agreement. What a waste of duck blood for hot pot, pig blood for sausage, and chicken blood for warding off evil spirits. Liu gave a sincere smile. Li Ji, you're actually better suited for this palace life. Father bet on the wrong horse. Just as I was admiring Li Yu's carefree wave, dry retching sounds came from the corner. I turned and saw Daquan somehow perched on the wall, vomiting repeatedly. You. Ugh. I panicked and reached out to help Daquan, but as I grabbed his collar, I noticed a bright yellow patch. I froze, confused. We just ate roast suckling pig tonight. Why are you wearing the imperial yellow robe? Just as I reached for him, Li Qing pulled back her hand and ran off. Wait for me, I'm going to change clothes too. Can't lose to that stubborn Daquan. Li Qing counted the days every day, keeping track of how many concubines in the palace had yet to be granted marriage by His Majesty and wondering when the two of us would be able to leave. Bored out of my mind while picking grass, I casually asked Li Qing, what would you think if I said, I want to marry a eunuch? Li Qing kept counting without looking up, replying, then the eunuch you marry must be the best eunuch in the whole world. After a moment, Li Qing suddenly realized, Miss, are you talking about Daquan? I just smiled without saying anything. Daquan won't do. Li Qing waved her hands so fast it was like a blur. Miss, why don't you pick another eunuch? I just can't compete with Daquan for favor. Ever since he brought you spices, poultry, lychee, cakes, daggers, kites, luban locks, bamboo dragonflies, 9 linked rings, dates, a grinder, I haven't eaten a single intact pig's ladder since. As Li Qing got more and more upset, Lin Yu showed up again like a persistent ghost and bluntly asked me, Has His Majesty come to see you? I shook my head. His Majesty probably doesn't even know who I am. Then how did he put on those old shoes you sent him? Lin Yu looked at my confused face and asked, You're not lying to me? Could it be that you have good luck with feng shui? Why would I lie? I haven't even left this courtyard since coming to the palace. Where would I meet His Majesty? Lin Yu thought for a moment, then slammed her hand on the table. Name your price. I'll buy this courtyard from you, and you move somewhere else. I waved her off. It's almost autumn harvest. Not even 1,000 taels could make me give up this courtyard. 5,000 taels.
Deal.
Li Qing excitedly clutched a thick stack of silver notes, barely containing her joy. Miss, are we rich now? Li Qing walked around the Huahi garden. But I'm still a little reluctant. Miss, you put so much effort into this place. Every journey has its hardships. Every place its own scenery. I patted the silver notes in Li Qing's hand. As long as your miss can still breathe, I'll make sure you live well. I took 2 silver notes and tucked them safely. I'm planning to use this money to bribe the court officials. Then I'll ask His Majesty for a marriage grant, and we'll leave the palace and live well. I'll buy a cow to help you plow the fields. Li Qing carefully probed my expression. What about Daquan? He probably can't leave the palace, right? I patted Li Qing's head. Don't worry, all future pigs' ladders will be yours. Miss, if we leave the palace, no need to buy cows, I'll plow. Li Qing suddenly got a rush of energy. I'm coming to freely plow the fields. Even when Daquan came to mooch food, Li Qing put on a different smile. Daquan shuddered. Did she poison the soup? Isn't she going to practice iron head skills and knock me dead? I didn't respond, instead pointed at the roof. I've never seen what this courtyard looks like from above. I wish I could climb up there. Daquan reached out, then withdrew his hand. Then he reached out again. Servant will carry you up? When I nodded, Daquan wrapped me around the waist, pushed off with his feet, and ran a few steps before leaping up to the roof. Daquan faced the starry sky, a smile at the corner of his mouth as he asked, "What good thing happened to young master today?" "I sold this courtyard to noble consort Lin." Daquan paused, then sulked. "Then what about me, your servant?" He stopped himself and instead asked, "Where is young master going? What about all the things in the courtyard?" I didn't answer his questions, instead pointed at the cloudy night sky and said, "Way Daquan, a shooting star, make a wish." Daquan immediately bowed his head, closed his eyes, and made a wish with full concentration. Looking at Daquan's silly side profile, I asked happily, "What did you wish for?" Daquan's eyes were serious. "If I say, it won't work." I looked up at the clouds blowing past. Do you want to leave the palace?" Diyun coughed. "I probably can't leave. What crime did your family commit that you were castrated and sent into the palace? And after all this time, haven't you taken your revenge yet?" I clicked my tongue. "Don't you notice how smoothly your servant sounds now? When you first came, you called yourself mine. Where's your integrity?" I straightened my face. "So, Daquan, from now on, do you want to call yourself mine?" Moonlight spilled on Daquan's slightly dazed side face. My gaze slowly shifted to his trembling thin lips. Maybe my stare was too intense because Daquan suddenly lowered his head and leaned in. My mind cleared for a moment before I quickly covered my mouth with my hand. The warm kiss landed on my palm, burning so much it made my tailbone tingle. "Young master, do you dislike your servant?" Daquan's eyes reddened. "But you never disliked even the roasted sweet potatoes I gnawed on." "Not dislike, just not the right time." I looked sincere. "Let's put it this way, even if I end up in the cold palace, I'll still be an imperial concubine. Otherwise, if we don't even get to kiss, we'll end up buried far apart. One in the west, one in the east." The first snowfall fell, and finally the gates of Hua He Garden were opened. For the first time, I stepped into the Empress Dowager's Sinang Palace to pay my respects. The Empress Dowager leaned against a soft pillow, waving lazily. "There are fewer and fewer concubines in the palace. His Majesty seldom comes to the harem now. You don't have to come here hoping to run into him and disturb my peace." Li Qing hurried to support me, but even after trying twice, she couldn't lift me up. The Empress Dowager looked at me with interest. "Do you still have something to say to me?" "Your servant wishes to request the Empress Dowager to grant me a marriage." I knelt before the Empress Dowager. Speaking sincerely, my legitimate elder sister has already been arranged by His Majesty to marry the Minister of Personnel. If I remain in the palace, I fear it will cause suspicion among the court officials. "You're clever, coming directly to me with your request." The Empress Dowager sneered. "Speak then, you little commoner girl. Which high-ranking minister do you want to marry?" "Your servant wishes to marry the eunuch Wei Daquan from the imperial kitchen." I took a deep breath, sinking my chi to my dantian. I hope the Empress Dowager will remember my meritorious blood donation and allow Daquan to leave the palace to fulfill our wish. No sooner had I finished speaking than a familiar voice came from outside the door. "I forbid you from leaving the palace to marry." "I forbid it." A commotion broke out outside. I saw that familiar face rush inside and for the first time questioned reality. "Daquan?" The Empress Dowager was shocked. "My son." I said, "I forbid you to leave the palace to marry. As long as you're willing to stay, your servant, His Majesty, promise that you'll be the only one in the palace." Daquan wore bright yellow robes and spoke urgently. "Even if you plant fields in the harem or raise pigs, it's fine." The Empress Dowager slammed the table angrily. "You bastard. Do you know what you're saying?" I looked at Li Qing stiffly. "Do you understand what they're talking about?" Li Qing nodded with sudden clarity. "He says he is the emperor." I had just closed my wide-open mouth when Lin Yu's cries echoed beside me. "Li Ji, You're such a liar. You said you didn't know His Majesty. The entire Sinang palace turned into chaos, a mess of Daquan's gentle murmurs, the Empress Dowager's furious shouting, and Lin Yu's wailing. Li Qing quietly tugged my sleeve and whispered in a voice only we could hear, "Miss, won't it be a problem if the Empress Dowager and noble consort Lin know that His Majesty is a eunuch?" No sooner had Li Qing spoken than the hall instantly fell silent, as quiet as a pin dropping. The Empress Dowager said, "My son is impotent." Lin Yu gasped, "His Majesty is unable?" Daquan's eyes immediately reddened. "Mother, now you understand why I never stepped into the harem. Only Li Ji is the cure to my illness." Li Qing shook her head and sighed. "This place is completely in chaos." I grit my teeth and scolded softly. "At a time like this, you're still thinking about eating porridge?" My mind raced 10 miles in circles, and I still couldn't figure out what to do next. The Empress Dowager looked at me with a complicated expression. A powerless father, a consort with no backing. How did you end up with such a disastrous start? Only Lin Yu suddenly slapped her thigh. "Better a short pain than a long one. I'm leaving the palace to marry too." Daquan, no, His Majesty, tentatively held my wrist and asked, "Young master, will you still leave the palace to marry?" I gave him a completely speechless look. Did you not hear a word of what I just asked the Empress Dowager?
9.
After the emperor learned that I wanted to take him out of the palace to marry, he immediately ordered the Imperial Household Department to dye the entire palace red overnight. Even the pigs, ducks, and chickens I raised were tied with big red silk bows. Lin Yu, angry and flustered, was herding the pigs, dragging the ducks, and carrying the chickens out. I paid for all of these, so naturally they're my dowry. Take them all with you. Return the rest of the money to me. Consider it as adding to your dowry. Lin Yu quietly pulled me aside and said, "You know, if a man isn't up to it, he might have a bad temper. I don't think you're the type to endure grievances. If you ever feel wronged, come to the general's mansion and find me, okay?" Li Qing watched Lin Yu happily carrying the chicken as she left, and said, "Miss, didn't you say you wanted to leave the palace with your servant to pursue freedom? Aren't you still staying inside?" Li Qing, true freedom is being able to choose freely. I patted Li Qing's shoulder.
Go.
Take the Imperial Guards and plow the whole western field. Now's the best time to plant mustard greens. It's hilarious. Plowing in the palace without even needing to buy oxen. Just flash the Empress's token and a crowd of people will help plow. What does it matter if the Emperor is functional or not? If he were a real eunuch, wouldn't that be even better? But the Emperor isn't a real eunuch. I placed my hand on my waist, watching him use a silver hairpin to light the dragon and phoenix candles, and couldn't help but say, "How about we take a break?" We started at the hour of the rabbit and kept going. You have to cram me into the general's mansion for marriage. First the welcoming ceremony, then the wedding, then the bridal chamber. I really can't take it anymore. The emperor rubbed his hands to warm them and gently pressed my waist. "I just feel sorry for you. You wanted to leave the palace, but I kept you here. So on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, I'll stay outside the palace with you. On Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, you stay with me inside, and on Sundays, you can stay wherever you want." Just as I was about to say, "Outside the palace on MWF, what about the new fields I planted?" The emperor leaned close and said, "Don't call me Your Majesty privately. Just call me Daquan." Daquan mischievously pinched my waist. "Come, mistress, let your servant loosen your muscles." Tears streamed down my face, and silently I wished, "May the emperor fully become Daquan." Emperor's Epilogue. Since I ascended the throne, ministers have used every trick to get their daughters into the palace. The moment I stepped outside the palace gates, I'd bump into a group of scheming noble women. Even when I stayed inside, they heartlessly sent their daughters in as maids to serve tea and water. Late at night, after I finished reviewing memorials, I'd look up and see the maid serving tea almost undressed. Fed up, I issued an edict. Ministers who want to curry favor must send their daughters into the palace. To get palaces near the diligent governance hall, wealthy maidens spent fortunes, filling the treasury. I saw intelligence from secret guards that some even paid to be sent to the remote flower and lotus garden. As fate would have it, while capturing an assassin, I twisted my ankle and collapsed into the extremely remote flower and lotus garden. I'll never forget Li Ji's bright eyes, even though she thought I was some kind of divine food dropped from the sky. I had planned to leave gracefully, but dizziness hit me, and I collapsed. The palace maids dragged me by the foot like a dead pig to Li Ji's side. "Miss, it's a little eunuch. I am the son of heaven. What a disgrace." But what's more embarrassing was vomiting all over Li Ji's clothes with a pounding heart. Li Ji looked at me like a dead dog and said, "You're poisoned, but at least you threw up all the leftovers you ate." Not only was I disgraced, I ate someone else's leftovers. Since they saved my life, I understood gratitude, but the moment they opened their mouths, they demanded a basket of live chickens from me. I am the son of heaven. Didn't they see my dignity? They didn't. They thought I was a poor eunuch, castrated and sent to the palace due to family troubles, with nothing to do but climb walls seeking revenge. Even when I carried the secret guard who died for me into the flower and lotus garden, Li Ji didn't ask questions, just helped check the poison, all while vomiting. She had good sense. Li Qing waved her hand, saying even if I were a pig, her miss would still help. Li Qing said Li Ji lost her mother at 8, left to fend for herself in the backyard, farming and raising pigs like a natural. She never cared for worldly things except for a dagger her mother gave her. I felt a pang. If that worn dagger cut a pig, the pig would go mad for 7 days. I took out a rare black iron dagger from my stash and gave it to Li Ji, who politely returned her treasured dagger to me. But I was wrong again. Li Ji didn't treasure the jewel-encrusted dagger much either. When she bled a pig with the black iron dagger, she was amazed. Is there such a fast dagger in the world? What kind of punishment was I enduring before? I felt emotional again and made a paper kite for Li Ji overnight. Watching her flying the kite, I was so moved I stayed awake several nights and personally made bamboo dragonflies, a 9-ring puzzle, and other toys. My senior eunuch Sinjinin couldn't help but laugh at me. "Your Majesty, you're love-struck." I was dazed and murmured, "I just feel sorry for her." Sinjinin's old face blossomed like a chrysanthemum in a smile. "Your Majesty, liking someone means caring for her." I looked at my tattered boots and said, "I like her." I was imagining Li Ji sewing my boots. Sinjinin, oblivious, warned, "But Your Majesty, be careful, don't fall too deep." My face instantly darkened. "Shut up, I'll decide for myself." Besides, when the pig's ladder, meant for Li Qing's bowl, ended up whole in my bowl, I knew my feelings weren't one-sided. Li Ji had feelings for me too. Li Qing glared at the meat in my bowl, gritting her teeth. "You got a good time again, huh?" I was happy, but said nothing. I must plan ahead. Once I send all the ministers' daughters out of the palace, I'll confess everything to Li Ji and make her my empress. She can plant wherever she wishes. I never expected the first thing Li Ji did when her house arrest was lifted was ask Mother Empress for a marriage decree. My Li Ji, last night, under the flowers and moonlight, almost kissing me. I steeled myself and told Mother Empress that I'm not functional and only Li Ji can cure me. Mother Empress grit her teeth, but turned a blind eye. When she saw Li Ji's belly swell, her expression changed faster than mine. Even ministers who disapproved of Li Ji as empress were reprimanded by edict, but Mother Empress was overconcerned. Li Ji summoned the dissenting ministers and noblewomen to the palace, waved her hand, and handed out hose to everyone. With passion, she declared, "All you extraordinary men and women, it's time to work hard and repay the emperor." The group was exhausted and dared not protest Li Ji again. Li Ji's biological father shamelessly wrote letters asking her to secure an official position for his elder brother. What kind of father was that? I couldn't hold back my anger. "Send out my champion." Sinjinin understood immediately and reported everything to Mother Empress. Mother Empress charged into the Li family mansion with the imperial guards, shouting until Li's father couldn't lift his head, and helped Li Ji divide the estate. After returning to the palace still furious, She changed Li Ji's household registration and granted her the title Princess Anha, raising her status from the start. Mother Empress rested on her cushion regal. I'm soft-hearted because it's for my royal grandson. After all, my own son of over 20 years deceived me. I'll raise a new grandson instead. Enough. Go help Li Ji scrub the pigs. She's pregnant and likes the smell of freshly cleaned piglets. Wash 2 more pigs tonight. Those pigs were scrubbed by me so much they started drinking liver-cleansing medicine. But I didn't have to suffer long. Li Ji pitied me and told me not to wash pigs anymore. Instead, I should practice iron head skills with Li Qing. She said when they both master it, they'll hammer me to death. Mainly because I didn't get that freshly cleaned piglet smell when washing pigs. I'm the son of heaven. What's with smelling like piglets? That night, I handed Li Ji some loofah pulp. Here, scrub. You like the white, tender piglet smell, right? I can do it too. End of text.